Donegal, Ballyshannon, Balleek, Belcoo, Black Lion, Florence Court, Swanland Bar, Ballyconnell, Killashandra. A daisy chain of signposts, each heightening expectation and noise levels as we headed for the Cavan holidays almost 50 years ago. My late father had come to Donegal during the big snow of 1947, a raw 19-year-old Garda recruit from Killashandra, whose train journey from Dublin, where he had trained in the old Phoenix Park depot, through Belfast, Derry, and eventually into the border station of Carrigan's in Donegal, had taken over 12 hours because of the blizzard conditions. The sergeant, a Leitrim man, had come to the train station to meet him some hours before, accompanied by a giant German shepherd. So by the time my father stepped off the train, the uniform and dog both looked like Lot's wife on the outskirts of Sodom. Dad's most vivid memory as he approached them was a sudden shake by man and beast, whereupon thousands of snowflakes cascaded onto the ground. An authoritative voice curtly inquired, "Galligan, I presume." My father, not given to monosyllables where a better opportunity presented himself, laughed nervously and replied, "Begod, Sergeant, for a minute there I thought I was in Alaska." He wasn't sure whether the dog or the sergeant growled, but the Leitrim retort was unmistakable. "Listen, Galligan, when you're 6 months in this God-forsaken corner, you'll know you're in Alaska." He met my mother some 5 years later, and they were married in her native Kilcar in southeast Donegal in 1953. I was the firstborn, named after her father, Frank Byrne, better known to the locals as Francie Vicky Loughlin, a singer, lilter, fiddle player, and a master at the melodeon. He farmed in the townland of Bugga in Kilcar, and holidays there ensured lazy days in the bog, joining with the neighbours in the ritual making of the stack, lots of music and lilting, and what seems from this distance, at any rate, endless sunshine. The journey itself was as much an adventure as the holiday. The signposts reading Letterkenny, Fintown, Glenties, Ardra, Glenyesh Pass, and finally Carrick. There was no sign for Bugga. It just came on you, to use a local phrase. Once during a leisurely interlude in the haymaking, I remarked to my dad that Grandad was a great character. He didn't disagree, but very pointedly emphasised an alternative. "Oh, wait till you meet your Cavan grandfather. Now there's a real character." I couldn't wait. If Andy Galligan could even match Francie Byrne, there was yet another treat in store. Dad was never done extolling the Cavan virtues of peerless football, hard work, thrift, and most of all, the ability not to get too excited about everything. My mother wisely didn't take the bait, but as the eldest of the clan, I wondered if somewhere there existed a place which included all of the virtues of my parents' counties, a kind of nirvana where perhaps hard work could be tempered by a few bottles of stout and a song at the stack, thrift by the occasional wee splurge, and crucially, the capacity to get excited within reason. It must be somewhere in between, I reckoned, so one day I looked at the map and discovered Leitrim. Now the daisy chain of signposts changed. I so wanted to travel via Bundoran, Kinloch, Manorhamilton, Glangevlin, Ballinamore, and finally Killashandra. Little did I realise that the onset of the Troubles would result in my Garda father's reluctance to travel through the north, and my Leitrim Nirvana dream would in time be realised. There were so many of us, of the current 11, 8 or 9 were around then, that a neighbour once joked, "When the Galligans leave the bus in Cavan, there's only the driver left." In time, Dad managed to get a loan of a motor car for the holidays, So the daisy chain of signposts from Donegal to Killashandra became a reality. One sweltering summer's day, I had my chance to suss out the real character when I was left minding my Cavan grandad in the kitchen in Drumgoa. I was reading Lorna Doone. 90-year-old Andy sat under the kitchen clock sucking on a pipe and saying absolutely nothing. I occasionally stole a glance to see that he was living. I remember the clock ticking for 2 and 3 in the afternoon, and suddenly when it hit 4, Andy coughed, hopped the pipe off his knee, looked at me, and after 2 hours of complete silence, uttered the immortal words, "Now you're talking."